Hey everyone, we've been losing a bit of traction lately. So please subscribe, it's free and helps us keep creating great content for you. Your support means a lot. Now, let's dive in. I was chosen from a young age to be the son-in-law of the Bond family. At age 20, I married Alice, a girl with autism. 5 years into the marriage, she always hated me, refusing to let me touch her, let alone share a bed. Later, she met a boy. In front of him, she shed all her temperament, behaving obediently like a foolish little piglet. She learned to write songs for him, learned to prepare gifts for him. Even the study room, where she never allowed me to enter, was wide open without any secrecy in front of that boy. I knew Alice liked someone else, and I didn't want to take care of her anymore. So I went to the patriarch of the Bond family, telling him I wanted a divorce. Before meeting Alice, my life was already not easy. My mother was obsessed with looks. She was captivated by my father's face, loving him to the point of blindness, going to bed with him without getting to know him. And then she had me. After giving birth to me, she discovered my father belonged to a wealthy family, one who could live comfortably for a lifetime with a wave of the hand. But the bad thing was, my father was a son-in-law who married into the wealthy family. In other words, he was a Phoenix man, relying on his wife to step into the upper class. And my mother was just his mistress, when caught cheating by his legitimate wife. My father, who always appeared imposing in front of my mother, suddenly became as despicable as a dog. He immediately cut off all contact, acting as if my mother and I never existed. My mother had to raise me alone. Life was incredibly hard. Riding a tricycle, selling street food on the sidewalk, being chased for tens of kilometers by the urban management team, to the point of losing a shoe. Later, my mother couldn't take it anymore. She said she wanted to find a better path for me. I don't know what method she used. I only know she brought out the DNA certification between me and my father, then ran to the front door of the Evans family, where my father lived, shouting and cursing loudly, forcing him to take responsibility for raising me. The wealthy family feared scandal, so they reluctantly agreed. From then on, my mother and I were separated. When I was taken into the Evans family home, my mother smiled through her tears. "David, you won't have to starve anymore." But my mother was too naive. My father saw me as a stain on his life. Mrs. Charlotte, his wife, also resented me. The servants followed their master's attitude. No one treated me well. And my half-sisters looked for ways to bully me every day. Of course, my mother never knew those things. That meeting at the gate of the Evans family home was the last time I saw her in my life. Afterward, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer and couldn't afford treatment. From the moment she handed me over to my father, she jumped off a building to commit suicide. I grew up in the Evans family home as an outsider, living cautiously and discreetly in every detail. At age 15, I met a girl in the Evans family garden. Her hand was scratched by rose thorns, and blood was still flowing. But she didn't seem to notice. Just sat quietly listening to music with headphones on. I thought for a moment, then brought iodine solution to disinfect it, and put a bandage on her. Later, I learned her name was Alice. Her grandfather, the patriarch of the Bond family, was visiting the Evans family. For some unknown reason, the old man took a liking to me and wanted me to be his grandson-in-law. The Bond family was a prestigious, long-established clan. My father naturally happily nodded in agreement. When my brothers heard the news, they all laughed at me. "Do you think you can climb up to the rich family? If it were really a good marriage, why would it fall to you?" It turned out, Alice had suffered from autism and emotional disorder since childhood. She was not like a normal person. But thanks to that engagement, Mrs. Charlotte finally looked at me differently, and my life in the house became easier. I often recalled the image of the thin girl, sitting quietly listening to music in the garden that day. She didn't know that her very existence helped me a lot, a whole lot. I began to research her illness, learning how to care for her, how to live with her. At age 20, as arranged by the two families, I married Alice. But I never expected her to resist so fiercely. Since getting married, she had never looked at me kindly. Alice wouldn't let me touch her, let alone share a room. On that wedding night, she got angry and screamed, get out of my room. I don't want to see you." I could only lower my head in silence, a feeling of humiliation and sorrow welling up. The next day, the Bond patriarch came to see me, saying that Alice had an odd temperament since childhood, and didn't like interacting with others. The maid who used to care for her had recently passed away, and her psychological state was very poor lately. He told me to be patient, and give her more time. I nodded in agreement. From then on, I took on the responsibility of caring for her, running back and forth between the Bond family home and the school, reminding her to take her medicine on time, taking her for regular checkups, arranging her meals and clothes every day. Fortunately, she wasn't emotionless. Gradually, she started to react, no longer kicking me out of the room, even awkwardly covering me with a blanket when she saw me fall asleep on the sofa. But Alice still firmly refused to sleep with me. The Bond patriarch was eager to hold a great-grandchild, urging me many times, but she didn't agree, and I couldn't force her. In the 5th year, he couldn't stand it anymore. Behind my back, he secretly put medicine in her drink, then brought her to my room, locked the door, trapping us inside. That night, I can never forget. Alice was in such agonizing pain that she trembled. Her eyes glazed over from the drug, only instinctively. Clumsy, stiff, no different from a dead fish. I felt like an animal being forced to mate. There was no pleasure, only humiliation and emptiness. Finally, I was exhausted, passing out before dawn. The next afternoon, the sound of breaking objects woke me up. Alice was having a tantrum. She smashed my phone, broke the wall-mounted TV. Tables and chairs were knocked over everywhere. Seeing me awake, she walked over, holding a mirror in front of my face. In the mirror was my image. Naked, tired, disheveled. She pointed at me, her eyes full of disgust. "You are a scumbag. You're disgusting. I hate you. I never want to see you again." That day, my body ached all over. I trembled just standing. But when she had her episode, she ran away. I had no choice but to go look for her. I didn't eat or drink anything, searching from noon until midnight, almost turning over every place she had ever been. In the end, my legs were trembling with exhaustion. I still couldn't find her. When I desperately leaned against the door of the house, it was already 1 a.m. Alice finally returned. Beside her was a boy, his smile radiating incredible sweetness. He looked up at her, speaking with great joy. "This is the first time I've met someone with such similar interests. Getting to know you is the biggest gain from this concert." Only then did I realize Alice had gone to the concert alone. Her phone ran out of battery, and she couldn't remember the way home. It was this boy who brought her back. Alice's footsteps were very slow. Clearly, the distance home was not far. Yet the two walked for a long time. They talked about music, about composers and artists whose names I had never heard. Alice had loved music since childhood. She studied under famous masters, and after graduation even opened her own recording studio, composing many famous pieces. I just stood at the door of the house, quietly listening to the two talk. They talked for half an hour, but Alice never noticed I was there. Finally, the butler couldn't stand it anymore, and spoke up. "Mistress, it's late. Please go rest. Master is still waiting for you." The boy turned around upon hearing that, a bit stunned, then asked, "Is this your husband?" A look of embarrassment flashed across Alice's face. She was silent for a few seconds, then nodded, but quickly added, "It was forced. I don't like him. I hate him very much." In that moment, I stood frozen, a feeling of shame and bitterness spreading throughout my body. I didn't know where to hide my face. The boy's name was David. He tugged at her sleeve, smiling and saying, "It's late, let's meet again next time." From that day on, the relationship between Alice and me plummeted to an icy low. She didn't speak a single word to me. On her birthday, I gave her a pair of the latest version of headphones, said to have excellent sound quality. I even specially pre-ordered it half a year in advance to make sure I got it. But Alice just took out a lighter, burned it right in front of me. The headphones were reduced to ashes. I don't like you, and I don't like your gifts. Garbage, I don't need it. That year on her birthday, she went out and celebrated with David. Since that meeting, they had kept in touch. Recently, David even started interning at her studio. Returning home in the evening, she wore a silver ring, a birthday gift from David. Looking at the broken headphone pieces scattered on the floor, only endless fatigue remained in my heart. The next day, the Bond patriarch suddenly called, asking me to come to the study. He wanted me to take a document and give it to his secretary. But I remembered very clearly, Alice always forbade me from entering the study. I hesitated, but the patriarch urged, "It's an urgent document, the secretary is waiting outside." I had no choice but to go get it. Before leaving, I even carefully rearranged everything back to its original state. But no matter how careful I was, Alice still found out that I had entered the study. Because her phone was connected to the surveillance camera inside, she rushed back from the studio, her face icy, her eyes filled with anger. "You are not allowed to enter. Absolutely not allowed." Her emotions were like an invisible storm sweeping through the room. Just because I went in to get a document, she immediately hired cleaners to disinfect the entire study from beginning to end. I stared at her, stunned, and finally couldn't help but ask, "Why can't I go in? Why?" Lately, she often invited David home to compose, and the two would stay in the study discussing music all day. I asked, "Why can he go in but I can't? I'm not dirty. Why do you have to clean the entire room?" Her expression grew colder. "You and he are not the same. He understands music, he is my soulmate. And you don't understand anything. Just stepping inside will dirty this place." After hearing that, I suddenly understood her meaning. I was used to her cold way of speaking all these years. But today, even though I knew she was angry, I couldn't remain calm as usual. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Alice, what you said is really hurtful." Just then, my hypoglycemia relapsed. I stumbled back a step. But right when I was standing in front of the study door, the door was not closed. I accidentally stepped inside. Alice thought I was deliberately provoking her. Her eyes were chillingly cold, and a vein popped up on her forehead. She pointed at me, hurling many harsh words. And finally, only 3 sentences remained. "Get out, this is my house, not yours. Never show up here again." These words, I had heard them before. The first day I was taken into the Evans family home, my half-siblings said the exact same thing. At that time, I only knew to hide under the blanket and cry secretly. I once swore that I must have a home of my own someday, a place where no one could chase me away. After getting married, I naively thought this villa was my home, even if it couldn't shelter me. At least, it was a place I could return to. Yet today, Alice screamed, saying that the house was in her name, and the money was also provided by her family. This place never belonged to me. She told me to get out, and told me never to come back. Emotions surged. A feeling of helplessness threatened to drown me. I calculated the time that had passed. I met Alice when I was 15. It had been 10 full years. From the engagement until the wedding, I took care of her for 5 years. And after the wedding, another 5 years. The favor to the Bond family, I considered it fully repaid. I was truly tired. I wanted a divorce. Once that intention arose, it was like a seed piercing the earth, growing bigger and more intense every day. A week later, I met the Bond patriarch at the old house. He sat on the sofa, tapping his fingers lightly on the table. "Why?" I replied. "Because Alice has someone she likes." In front of him, she restrains her anger, turning into an obedient girl. She can write songs for him, and prepare gifts for him. She is determined to make him happy. As long as David is around, Alice's mood is much better. Whether viewed from an objective or subjective perspective, he is more suitable for Alice than I am. The Bond patriarch fell silent after hearing this. After a long time, he just cleared his throat and asked me, David, do you know why I chose you as my grandson-in-law back then? Is it because I gave Alice a bandage? I asked tentatively. He shook his head. No. I did some investigating. I knew you were a kind person. And I also knew your status in the Evans family was awkward. You weren't respected. You needed this marriage. After getting married, relying on the Bond family name, your life would be much easier. It's also because of this that you would become Alice's lifeline. Grateful, tolerant, even spoiling her. When I learned you chose psychology as your university major, I was certain I hadn't misjudged you. You truly are like that. He sighed. A child like Alice, if she weren't ill, would surely be brilliant and sought after. But she is ill. I only have one granddaughter. So of course, I must find her an absolutely loyal husband, who can take care of her for life. As for that David you mentioned, I don't know what kind of person he is. So I'm not at ease handing Alice over to him. Speaking of this, he looked directly at me, his voice serious. David, you grew up in the Evans family. You know well what kind of people wealthy women are. Don't talk about having one man outside. Even 10 wouldn't be surprising. Compared to them, Alice's nature is simple, not promiscuous, which is very good. Moreover, as long as I am alive, no man will be able to shake your official status. Is there anything else you are dissatisfied with? I understood his meaning, but I didn't want to keep living in this house, beside a woman with autism, going through a life whose end I could see just by looking. Alice drove me away. I spoke seriously to the Bond patriarch. Now, my existence only causes her more resentment. Recently, her episodes have also been happening more frequently. Hearing this, the Bond patriarch's face gradually darkened. He silently considered the relationship between Alice and me. After a long pause, he sighed. David, about the divorce, let me think about it more. You should go back first. Alice is your wife after all. We must also ask her opinion on this matter. I nodded, stood up, and left. How could Alice possibly object? She was probably hoping to sign the divorce papers immediately. Today the spring rain was drizzling, and the wind outside was very strong. As I stepped out of the old villa, I saw Alice standing by the gate. She was wearing a white shirt, holding an umbrella. The umbrella was covered with raindrops. I didn't know how long she had been standing there, or how much she had heard. The moment she saw me, her lips tightened, her face pale. You said, you want to divorce me? After I confirmed it, Alice was silent for a moment, as if thinking about something. A moment later, she asked, so, after the divorce, will you still take care of me? I was stunned, speechless. Alice, divorce means we are strangers from now on. I am no longer your husband, and I have no obligation to take care of you anymore. The rain was getting heavier, and the wind blew, soaking half of my shoulder. Alice looked at me, shaking her head. No, I don't want to. I truly didn't expect her to not want a divorce. Why? I asked. Will no one take care of you after the divorce? Don't you like David? You can let him take care of you. But Alice stubbornly shook her head. No. He's busy composing. He can't stay home all the time. You're free, you take care of me. I lowered my head to look at the puddle at my feet, feeling only coldness in my heart. Alice thought David had dreams, and couldn't bear to tie him down at home. As for me, a boring, ordinary person, I was born to revolve around her. Alice, if you need someone to take care of you, you can hire a caregiver. Before I came, didn't Aunt Jimena take care of you very well? I tried to reason with her, but she just insisted. I don't need anyone else. I want you. As she spoke, Alice's hands clenched tightly, her fingernails digging deep into her skin. That was a sign of an episode. I didn't want to argue anymore, and turned to go home. She followed closely behind me, her mouth continuously repeating the 3 words, no divorce. I didn't answer. She immediately pinched her arm until it bled. The Bond family is so rich. How could they not afford a caregiver? I didn't understand why Alice was so stubborn. Finally, she choked out. Because I'm used to it. Habit. is something that is built over the years. I said. When I first started taking care of you, you weren't used to it either, right? Everything has an adaptation period. Just make an effort to adjust, and you will get used to it too. But Alice shook her head, more stubborn than a donkey. Seeing that I wouldn't listen, she started screaming. No, don't ignore me, you have to listen to me. I knew that talking was useless at this point, so I remained silent. She thought I had agreed, and the tension on her face gradually eased. When we got home, we saw David standing at the door. Alice's eyes lit up. The divorce matter was instantly forgotten. She and David went into the study together and locked the door before entering, as if afraid someone would suddenly burst in. Not long after, the melodious sound of a piano echoed from inside, intertwined with the boys' radiant laughter. The atmosphere became full of life. When David came out, it was already 10 p.m. It was raining heavily outside. Alice looked at him and called softly, "It's raining, you'll catch a cold if you go out. Stay here and sleep." David blinked and smiled. "Silly, I didn't bring pajamas, how can I stay?" Alice pointed at me. "He has some." David laughed. "Then I have to ask him if he agrees. And if he's willing to lend me clothes first." He turned to look at me, smiling brightly. Before I could answer, Alice quickly said, "He agrees." David's lips curved. He tilted his head and teased, "How can you answer for someone else so arbitrarily?" Alice pointed at the villa. "This is my house, not his house." Then she pointed at the wardrobe. "Those clothes were also bought with my money." I said it already, I'm the one who decides. So David smiled sweetly and said to me, "Mr. David, I'll stay tonight then. I hope I'm not intruding on your marital life?" Hearing that, Alice's reaction was fiercer than mine. She quickly explained, waving her hands rapidly, "No. We don't have that kind of thing. It's nauseating." I listened silently, not looking up, just quietly scrolling through my phone. Alice was right, this place was never my home. I had already decided to move out. It wasn't easy to find an affordable apartment. While I was at the Evans family, I didn't have pocket money. If I lacked anything, I would tell the butler. And as long as it was reasonable, it would be provided. After moving to the Bond family home, the Bond patriarch gave me $10,000 a month. It seemed like a lot, but it had to cover Alice's treatment costs, psychological consultation fees, diet expenses, and the salaries for all the staff in the villa. Calculating carefully, I only had a few thousand left each month. Therefore, the amount of money I had saved was truly not much. After 2 days of searching, I found a suitable apartment. I was packing clothes when Alice returned. Since I mentioned the divorce, her attitude towards me had been slightly softer. Sometimes she even initiated a conversation. For example, now, she asked, "Are you packing these things to throw away?" I shook my head. "No." Alice pointed at the clothes I folded. "Throw them away, they're ugly, you have no sense of style. You don't know how to coordinate outfits. Everything you wear is provincial." I stopped my hands, looking up at her. "Then, in your opinion, what is beautiful?" She thought seriously for a moment, then replied, "Like David, he looks very handsome. You should learn from him. I have money, I can buy clothes for you." I looked at the white dress on top of the pile of clothes and paused slightly. That dress was one I personally chose for her a year ago. When I was walking with Alice in the street, I still clearly remember the moment she stepped out of the fitting room. I stammered for a long time before managing to say 2 words. "It's beautiful." But now, it was the same dress, the same person, yet it was criticized as provincial and outdated. Did the dress change, or did the person change? I lowered my eyes, continued folding clothes, my voice calm. "No need, I like my own style." Alice's eyes gradually turned cold. She threw back a phrase, "Suit yourself," and turned to leave. The door slammed shut, with a bang, ringing in my eardrums. That evening, she didn't leave her room. So she didn't know that I had already left the villa. When I left the Bond family home, I only brought a 24-inch suitcase and a blue backpack. I entered the Bond family with that much luggage. I left the Bond family with only that much. Alice was right. That place was never my home. I only stayed in the new apartment for one day. Then set off for the Uxmal ruins. When I was little, my mother often said, "Tomorrow will be better. Wait until I save enough money. I will take you traveling." After my mother passed away, I still comforted myself. Everything will get better. Wait until I save enough money. I will travel alone. But life is not a dream. I just jumped from one cage to another. Alice couldn't be left alone. I couldn't go far. I once tried to take her traveling with me. But she was used to living in this city. The change of environment made her anxious. Even eating on the high-speed train became a problem. I had no other choice. That time, I had to take Alice off the train at the next station to return. However excited the original travel plan was, the moment I got off the train was equally disappointing. It turned out, having money doesn't necessarily mean freedom to travel. Because of burdens. Because there's no time. But now, I was standing at the foot of Uxmal. The wind gently ruffled the lake surface, shaking the shape of the clouds in the sky. I listened to music, slowly cycling on the small road. With green forests on both sides, and fields. With light shimmering on the water surface. With clouds leisurely drifting over distant mountain peaks. All the rigid rhythms of life suddenly vanished. Amidst the sound of waves, I felt free. Relieved, alive. Many mentally exhausted people gathered here. Setting up small stalls. Sitting under the starry sky, telling each other their stories. There was a medical student who quit her job due to exhaustion and temporarily lived here. She said, "Here, the days are no longer fragmented by holidays." There was also someone undergoing treatment. He said, "I don't know what the future holds. But at least, at this moment, I am living." We met fleetingly. Touched the softest part of each other's hearts. Then, like the 18 streams at the foot of the mountain, we diverged and flowed in our own directions. Afterward, I went up to the mountaintop alone to watch the sunrise. The water surface reflected the sunlight, shattering into sparkling silver coins. When I was locked up in the Evans family home, I never expressed my emotions. When Alice cursed me and chased me out of the house, I didn't care either. But right now, I covered my face, my shoulders shaking incessantly. For the first time, I truly felt what freedom was. No more alarm clocks. No more lists of chores. Only the green mountains calling me. And I could sit still all day and do nothing. 2 weeks later, I reinstalled the SIM card into my phone. Before leaving the Bond family home, I had sent the Bond patriarch a message, simply informing him of my departure. When I reinserted the SIM card, there were numerous missed calls. From my father, from the Bond patriarch, and from Alice. I sat in the car returning, and called the Bond patriarch back. "David," his voice was full of fatigue. "Come back quickly, Alice, she's not well." And so, I returned to the Bond family home. I discovered that after I left, Alice went berserk. She didn't know how to live. For example, the medicine bottles in the cabinet. She didn't know how many pills to take each day. Before, I would always pour water and place the medicine in front of her. That day, Alice had a press conference. But she couldn't find the necklace to match her dress. She tried to contact me, but couldn't get through. Hearing the butler say I had left, Alice went into a furious rage. Plates, cups, and mugs were all smashed. The air conditioner was also knocked down. The coffee table and kitchen cabinets were overturned. The house became chaotic, to the point that the Bond patriarch had to find a new maid for her. The maid didn't understand her well, so she was flustered and didn't know what to do. When I returned, Alice had lost a significant amount of weight. Her chin was distinctly sharper. As soon as she saw me, she lowered her eyes and turned away coldly. "Why did you come back? Didn't you say you were leaving? You hateful, deceitful person." During the time I was away, the Bond patriarch had contacted the owner of the apartment I rented. I don't know what he said, but the landlord suddenly refused to rent to me anymore. Therefore, I had to drag my luggage back. Alice glanced at the suitcase in my hand, and scoffed softly. "The Evans family doesn't need you. You have nowhere to live. So you still had to come back here, didn't you? I didn't explain, just silently dragged my luggage into the room. The moment my back disappeared behind the door, Alice slightly curled her lips. Her mood seemed to be a little better. She didn't know the real reason I came back. That apartment was forfeited. But I could absolutely rent somewhere else. Even leave this city. And start a new life. I had a long talk with the Bond patriarch over the phone. I told him that I had researched marriage law. I could file for divorce first. It was okay if the first time failed. I would live separately from Alice for a year. Then file again for the second time. According to the law, I would definitely win the second time. The patriarch asked me why I was so determined to divorce. Since I wouldn't get much money from it. Yes, he was very astute. Before the marriage, Mr. Bond had asked Alice and me to sign a prenuptial agreement for asset division. All of her assets, including the design studio, were premarital property. If we divorced, I would practically leave empty-handed. I knew, but I still wanted to leave. The marriage with Alice protected me for 5 years. And I also took care of her for 5 years. Both sides were considered to have paid off their debts to each other. On the phone, the patriarch was silent for a long time. Just when I thought he was about to hang up, he said, "I have hired a new maid. But she doesn't know how to take care of Alice. Stay for 1 more month, and help her transition into the job. Once that's done, I won't object to the divorce anymore. And I will give you an extra $100,000. The condition was too generous. I couldn't refuse. Therefore, Alice didn't know. This was the last month I would be with her. The butler said. When I wasn't here, Alice didn't eat or drink properly. But that evening, she ate all her food. She scoffed softly, looking at me. It's decent. I smiled, as before, gently saying, "Well done." The corners of her lips curved into a beautiful arc. When she returned to her study room, I quickly instructed the new maid, Alice. She likes to be complimented. Normally you can compliment her a little more. If she makes a mistake, don't point it out right away. Gently mention it at another time. Alice took out a small notebook and wrote down every word I said. I then took her to the pharmacy. Showed her how to arrange the medicine. How many times a day to take each type. To take it with warm water about 40 degrees Celsius. It shouldn't be too hot. Her clothes are hung in the second drawer. And she must have a glass of warm milk every night before bed. Alice diligently took notes of every detail. After I returned, Alice's life gradually stabilized, and her illness did not relapse. But that evening, when Alice brought up the medicine, the sound of breaking glass suddenly echoed in the room. I ran in, seeing glass shards and scattered medicine all over the floor. Alice stood barefoot. A piece of glass cut her foot, and blood stained the floor red. She didn't seem to feel the pain. Just trembled and pointed at Alice. Looking at me and asking word by word. Why is it her? Why isn't it you? Clearly, this is your job. Why did you change the person? After saying that, she tightly gripped my sleeve, shaking her head. I don't want anyone else. I only need you to bring me my medicine. So I poured water again, and gave her the medicine. Her mood came quickly, and left quickly too. When I saw her obediently take the medicine I gave her, I asked, "Why does it absolutely have to be you?" She lowered her head and whispered, "Because seeing others scares me. I'm afraid you'll hand me over to someone else. And then leave, won't need me anymore." I have to say, Alice's intuition was very sharp. I was indeed guiding Alice to gradually take over her life. Alice still clung to my sleeve, her eyes pleading, "You must still be the one to come in the future. Don't change the person. Promise me, don't leave." Understanding her stubborn personality, I knew if I told the truth, she would definitely get angry. And I no longer had the energy to coax her anymore. Therefore, I looked directly into her eyes, and gently lied. "All right, I promise. I won't leave, and I won't change the person." After all, there was only half a month left. Just need to give her medicine for another half a month. Alice smiled contentedly. She didn't notice the wound on her foot was still bleeding. And this time, I didn't bend down to bandage her as before. And she also didn't notice the look of pity from the new maid standing beside her. Everyone knew I was about to leave. Only Alice was still immersed in her own world. That noon, I met David again. He stood at the villa gate, his gaze lingering on the second-floor window, where Alice was sitting by the window, bowing her head to play the piano. David hesitated for a long time. He didn't go to see her, but instead came to find me. He handed me a set of yellowed sheet music. She's always looking for this piece. Please help me pass it on to her. I frowned slightly. Alice is right upstairs. Why don't you bring it up yourself? He shook his head, forcing a smile. She doesn't want to see me anymore. Only then did I realize. Before, David would visit the Bond house 2 out of every 3 days. But lately, he hadn't appeared. Even the ring he gave Alice had vanished. Mr. David. David called me softly, cutting short my train of thought. You know, don't you? I like Alice. I nodded. That was obvious to anyone. The first time I met Alice at the music festival, everyone was in groups. Only she was sitting alone, lost in the crowd. I noticed her from the first sight. She was truly beautiful. I've forgotten what piece she played that day. I only remember I couldn't stop looking at her. When I learned her phone was out of battery, I made an excuse to take her home. I wasn't stupid, just a few words and I understood. She was not like a normal person. But I found her like that, very cute. Very pure. Mentioning Alice, David's eyes suddenly lit up with a faint smile. After you left, the Bond patriarch called me, saying you two were going through divorce procedures. Hearing that, I was genuinely happy. I always thought, you and she don't belong to the same world. You live practically, worrying about food, clothing, and money. But she lives in the world of music, only concerned with art. She and I share the same idol, the same musical taste. We can talk to each other endlessly. I thought I was the one more suited for her. So I even advised her to divorce. I could take care of her in your place. David paused for a moment, sighing softly. But do you know what happened? David was still standing outside the villa gate, telling me this. I asked if he wanted to come in and sit. He just looked up at the second floor, where Alice was still playing the piano. Then shook his head. After you left, I came here and stayed with Alice for a few days. In the study room, she talked to me about music. Outside the room, she started teasing me. David smiled faintly, with a hint of bitterness. I made a strawberry cake for her. She was dazed for a moment, then said, Mr. David likes strawberries the most. On the sofa in the living room, there was a whole row of dolls. Alice said you sewed each one. And on the shelves in her room, it was all photos of the two of you together. I tried to count, but I couldn't finish counting. Do you know what was the hardest thing for me to bear? David's eyes suddenly darkened. She said, there was a piece of music that gave her a feeling very similar to you. She had never been away from you for so long. She missed you. Those things, I had no idea about. I asked, so what happened next? David replied, his voice hoarse. I asked her if she intended to divorce. She said, she wouldn't. Without any hesitation. I was silent. David smiled faintly, smiling as if he wanted to cry. That night I went crazy. I wanted to prove that she loved me. I went into her room. In front of her, I took off all my clothes, telling her, let's try it with me. David, Alice once said, being with you, she felt nauseous. If she agreed to be with me, wouldn't that prove she liked me more? I just listened quietly, saying nothing. But her reaction, David trembled slightly, was incredible. Panic, fear, disgust. I can't even describe it. She was so angry her face turned red. Pushed me out of the room. Said I was just as despicable as everyone else. Then told me not to come looking for her anymore. David's eyelids drooped, concealing the loneliness in the depths of his eyes. After I left, I just saw her sitting amidst the pile of dolls, softly calling your name. David looked up, gazing through the glass, where she was still playing the piano. His eyes somber. Before, I used to comfort myself that she didn't love you, that you used marriage to tie her down. that the injured party was the third person. But now. He sighed softly again. She still looks at you, even through a pane of glass. And me, I still like her. But I know it's impossible. David handed the sheet music to me again. Please give it to her. I searched for it for a very long time. I don't know if Alice saw him, or if she deliberately chose not to look. David stood in front of the villa gate for over an hour. She never lowered her head, never glanced his way even once. When David turned to leave, he walked very slowly, until his figure disappeared from my sight. He still hadn't received the glance he hoped for. After David left, Alice became more clingy towards me, even trying to find things to talk about. She asked me, "Where have you been for the past half-month?" I took out my phone, showed her photos and videos from the trip, and told her about the interesting things. At the market, people were selling hairpins and earrings, made from dried gladitsia fruit. Very creative. If you saw them, you would surely like them. There was also indigo dyeing, wood printing, plant engraving. I did all of them myself. They are very meaningful. I even followed the villagers up the mountain to pick mushrooms along the stream, filling up a large basket. It was the first time I truly felt the joy of the harvest season. I burst out laughing. Sorry, I think I've talked a bit too much. I'm usually not such a talkative person. I don't know why. As long as Alice asked about the trip, I could talk on and on. So much that she couldn't even interject a word. She just smiled. A very gentle smile. But in the depths of her eyes, a faint, smoke-like trace of sadness quietly passed. Alice propped her chin on her hand, her voice calm. Say what you need to say. I'm listening. I recounted every detail, describing everything I had seen and experienced. She listened quietly, nodding, her sharp eyes reflecting every emotion. Suddenly, she asked me, "Do you like to travel?" I didn't hesitate, nodding. Very much, but I still feel safer at home. Trying it once is still worthwhile though. She was slightly surprised. Trying what? Alice turned back and forth, playfully fiddling with the gift I made. She didn't answer. Nor did she go into her study. She preferred being at home rather than at the studio. One day, she unexpectedly called me from the study. David. I asked her what was wrong. She opened the door, signaling for me to come in. I still stood at the doorway, remembering the last time she was angry in the room, not daring to step inside. But this time, she took my hand and pulled me in. From now on you can come in here. No one else can, only you. I have a gift for you. The study room was spacious. Besides the desk and chairs, there was a white piano. Today Alice wore a high-end dress, with meticulous makeup. She only dressed up like this for performances. The afternoon light shone through the glass door, bathing her, making her golden-dyed hair and stacked eyelashes gently flutter. Her 10 fingertips moved across the piano keys, notes pouring out from her fingertips, winding like sea waves in early spring. I didn't understand much about music theory, knew nothing about slow music or subtle rhythms. I only knew that her piano playing was full of layers, like continuous ocean waves rising, both profound and effusive. I listened quietly. When the music ended, she looked up at me. Did it sound good? I nodded sincerely, applauding. Very good, excellent. She just smiled, suggesting, but it still needs a little adjustment. Adding a few more notes would make it perfect. I asked for the name of the piece. Alice hesitated for a moment. Haven't thought of a name. This piece is written for my husband. Your birthday is coming up. Consider it a gift. I was stunned. I didn't expect her to give me such a special gift. She kissed my cheek twice gently, then changed the subject. Do you know why I got sick? I recounted. I had asked Mr. Bond. He said her illness was due to the nanny not taking proper care of her. But she said it wasn't related to the nanny, but her parents. Alice was silent for a moment, as if wanting to explain the story from the beginning. Her hand trembled. It seemed just recalling it took all her strength. I comforted her. It's okay. If it's too painful, you don't have to tell me. She bit her lip, determined to tell me so I would understand. After a moment of mental preparation, She opened her mouth with difficulty. Dad pursued Mom for a long time, before Mom agreed to marry him. 2 years later, Mom found out Dad was cheating. The first time Mom was very angry. Dad knelt down and promised to change. But then there was the third time. I even saw it right at home. It was truly disgusting. Mom couldn't stand it, so she took me to live elsewhere. Dad came to beg for Mom's forgiveness. Mom was soft-hearted again, and came home. But Dad still didn't stop, and even brought that woman along. Mom was comforting me to sleep, and Dad was sleeping with another woman in the next room. That time Mom didn't cry. She wasn't angry, but strangely calm. She even invited Dad to travel with me. This was the first trip for the three of us, and the only one. I held Dad's hand tightly, suppressing my emotions. That night, in a strange city, my mom held a knife. Then the unthinkable happened. When I woke up, my parents were no longer moving. I stood still. The whole story about the love in the wealthy Bond family now appeared completely different. I had been told Alice's mother was initially planning to marry someone else, but fell in love with her father at first sight. Her mother initially didn't want to get involved, but was pursued by her father for 4 years, and finally accepted his proposal. After that, they were happy for a few years, had Alice. But an accident took both of them away. That beautiful love story was actually hiding a cold and bloody past. When she witnessed her parents' death, Alice was only 6 years old. Her psyche was not yet fully developed. She became severely ill, and woke up in her current state. I finally understood why Alice felt unsafe going out, and why she resisted marriage and close relationships. She sat next to me, hesitating for a moment, then slowly, little by little, placed her hand on mine. I know I'm sick. I will try to overcome it. From now on you can come into the study. You can hold my hand without me having to say it. I will be good, take my medicine, and not get angry without reason. She looked at me with serious eyes, as if wanting to give me her whole heart. For the first time, I clearly felt affection from the palm of her hand. Alice's voice was gentle and warm. Let's go traveling together. I will try to go to a new place. When we return, we will celebrate your birthday. Alice held my hand, opening a map, studying each city, looking at the sky gradually darkening. I called Mr. Bond, telling him about Alice wanting to travel. He was silent for a moment, then asked me, "Have you finished the handover with Alice?" I replied, "This trip will be less than a week. After we return, I will leave. Everything that needs to be handed over to Alice is done." Mr. Bond nodded. It's good that Alice wants to go on a trip. Let her go out for a stroll, visit a bit. Alice and I discussed for a long time, preparing carefully for this trip. We decided to go to Puerto Rico together. Alice meticulously researched the route, planning step by step. She even specially brought a camera. I can take photos of you, to keep the memory. She was very organized, making a packed schedule, even arranging what to eat every day in advance. Our destination this time was an island. Boarding the plane, I clearly saw Alice's emotional fluctuation. Perhaps she felt confined in the enclosed space, similar to the time we took the high-speed train. She became restless and anxious. Sitting next to me, she gently pulled my hand, leaning close. "If you feel unwell, we can go back. Don't force yourself." Alice pursed her lips, shaking her head. "It's okay, let's go. I don't want to bother you." When the plane took off, she tightly held my hand, her small palm drenched in sweat. Mid-flight, we encountered severe turbulence, and the plane shook violently. She closed her eyes, trying to stay calm, but her sweaty hair and the hand tightly gripping mine clearly revealed her anxious state. The plane landed, and we still had to rent a car and drive for 4 more hours. The entire journey, Alice was on high alert, always sensitive to the environment and climate. I kept comforting her as we drove. "Don't worry, I'll be by your side." She raised her lips, forcing a smile. "It's okay, David, I'm fine." Checking into the hotel, after a hot shower, I saw Alice curled up in a corner, shivering slightly. Seeing me, she took 2 deep breaths, opened her suitcase, and took out 2 tranquilizers. Before I could ask anything, she stood up, acting normal. It's nothing, I just took a shower. Don't worry. Alice tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep. For many years, she had never left the bed in the villa, even though she was accustomed to that bed. I gently asked, "Do you want me to tell you a story before bed?" She shook her head. "No need, I'm about to sleep. We'll go see the beach tomorrow." She seemed to be asleep all night, but the dark circles under her eyes the next morning still betrayed a sleepless night. She ate very little, constantly popping pills into her mouth. I was very excited about the beach, but seeing Alice so tired, I only wanted to take care of her, not even having time to admire the morning mist. After all, I was the one who brought her out, so I had to bring her back safely. She pointed to the rolling mountains in the distance. "Don't look at me, look over there. Come here so I can take a photo of you." She took out her phone to take a picture, her hand shaking slightly. Other tourists secretly shook their heads, wondering why she looked so pale, as if affected by the sea breeze. Alice looked a bit embarrassed. She looked down at her shoulder, taking a deep breath. "Let's go, let's take a walk first." We walked along the beach together. Other couples were running and playing freely. I silently admired their freedom. She tried to keep up with me, but the strange environment made her extremely vigilant, unable to enjoy it comfortably like a normal person. She said, "David, you run, I'll take pictures." "No need, let's just stroll slowly." Along the way, there were many shaded areas, and when we stopped, it felt pleasant. Alice said nothing, just smiled self-deprecatingly. After 3 days of travel, she was visibly thinner, her face haggard. If the trip was to recharge me, then for her, it was truly a challenge. Her suppressed emotions were constantly on the verge of erupting at any moment. One day, I tried riding a horse. She stood still, raising her camera to photograph me. The horse gradually picked up speed, from a slow walk to a canter. Alice kept taking pictures, but her hand was still shaking. I was enjoying the feeling of freedom, closing my eyes. But suddenly a tragic scream rang in my ear. It was Alice's voice. Alice had an episode. The cause was a couple arguing nearby. For some unknown reason, the couple started fighting. The man said he would beat the woman when they got home. And the woman threatened, "If you dare to leave, I will stab you with a knife." The words exchanged between the husband and wife were very harsh, causing everyone around to steer clear. Only Alice slowly turned her head to look at them. The more violently they argued, the heavier her breathing became. Perhaps it was the high level of stress she had been under for the past few days. Or perhaps she suddenly recalled past painful memories. When the man pushed the woman to the ground, she rushed over to block him. And then she had her episode. When Alice had an episode, she couldn't control her emotions. I stayed by her side, constantly comforting and soothing her, until the sun gradually set, and she finally calmed down. "David, I'm sorry, I made you worry." She sat on the grass, hugging her knees, her face dejected. "Going out with me is awful, isn't it?" I gently shook my head. "No, it's not awful, it's just that you're not happy. I saw your travel photos. You smiled so brightly. But when you came home, you weren't as cheerful as in the photos anymore. You wanted me to be happy. That's why you took me traveling. But through my camera lens, you weren't as radiant as the passers-by from the previous time. When you rode the horse, I finally took one good photo. But after just one shot, I had an episode. David, I'm so useless. Traveling with me, you can't even relax. Bringing along someone who could have an episode at any time. How can you be comfortable?" What she said was all true. I couldn't refute it. We sat together on the beach, watching the sun slowly set over the horizon. She sat there, her dark eyes filled with brokenness. "David, I'm really a terrible person." It was completely dark. I stood up, dusting the grass off myself. "Don't overthink things. The return flight tickets were already booked for tomorrow. The trip was about to end. Tomorrow we would return. The day after was my birthday. And the day after that I would take the 100,000 and leave." Alice stood up after me. Her face clouded, not saying a word. Even on the way back, she was unusually silent, occasionally taking out her phone to arrange something. Back at the house, she truly breathed a sigh of relief, her breathing becoming more even. Before going to sleep, after much hesitation, she said, "Good night, David. Tomorrow I have a new birthday gift for you." I thought the gift was a song, or an item. But the next day, she appeared at my door in a dress. "David, let's go to the marriage registration office to apply for a divorce." Alice was extremely stubborn. Once she decided, she wouldn't change. I had mentally prepared to spend 1 or 2 years on the divorce procedure. I never expected her to change her mind so suddenly. I asked why. She calmly replied, "You are unhappy. I don't want to drag you down. I've made you suffer for too long, so I'm letting go." Alice cried for the first time in front of me. I thought someone like her wouldn't shed tears. But in the car to the registration office, her hot tears fell onto my palm, like incessant spring rain. Arriving there, she wiped her tears, smiling faintly. "David, the gift I'm giving you for your 25th birthday is freedom, is divorce. The 30-day period, during which Mr. Bond tried to hold on to me." He asked, "Alice has realized her feelings for you. Do you truly want a divorce? Staying would give you a better life." I shook my head. No. Once a person has tasted freedom, they no longer want to be bound. Leaving the Bond family caused a huge commotion. My father called and scolded me. Mrs. Charlotte also blamed me, saying I should be grateful to Alice. 30 days later, Alice and I went to the registration office to receive the divorce papers. Along with the papers was a check, worth about 1 billion. She handed it to me. "David, go to further roads. Climb higher mountains. Reach wider horizons. And can I still see you in the future?" I nodded. "Yes, I will invite you every birthday." Alice smiled gently, turning 1,000 words into one sentence. "David, take care." Alice's epilogue. The first time I realized I liked David was at the old house. At that time, he told my grandfather he wanted a divorce from me. My instinctive reaction was opposition. When I realized I didn't want a divorce, I was stunned. Since childhood, due to my parents' relationship, I hated, felt revulsion towards, even feared marriage. I always felt that David used marriage to bind me, and always hoped that one day I could escape. But when that day truly arrived, my heart fiercely resisted. I lied to myself, and to David, saying I was just used to his presence. I deliberately let David stay. Deliberately complimented David's clothes, wanting to prove that I didn't like David. Didn't like the man my grandfather forced me to accept. Then David left. When I heard the news, I was angry, anxious, and self-reproachful. I was angry that he left without saying anything. Angry that he abandoned me. And desperately wanted to find him and bring him back. David appeared at this time. Advised me to divorce. Even took off his clothes, wanting me to do those things. A strange feeling surged in my heart. I really hated intimacy. Didn't want any close relationship. But in that moment, a strange thought flashed through my mind. If the person facing me was David, then it wouldn't be impossible. I finally couldn't lie to myself anymore. I liked David. I missed him terribly. When I missed him, I could only bury my face in the pile of dolls he gave me. Then he returned. I still acted tough, but my heart was overflowing with joy. But for some reason, I always felt he was transitioning and would soon push me to a new person. I was afraid of being abandoned again. I wanted him to die by my side, even if it meant death. So I deliberately acted friendly. Sought him out to talk. Wrote music for him. Expressed my feelings. But I found him unhappy. In front of me, he was always indifferent. Like a soulless walking dead. But clearly, in the travel videos, David was full of life. I wanted him to be happy. So I invited him to travel. Only then did I realize it wasn't traveling that brought life to David, but that he only truly shone when he was away from me. Even traveling with me, he was exhausted, always having to watch out for my sudden episodes. Never truly relaxed. One day, sitting on the beach, I suddenly felt immense pity for him. Why was David's luck so bad? To have met me? If he stayed with me, he might never smile again. Then, I should set him free. The 25th birthday gift I had planned to give him was that piece of music. The piece had taken a lot of effort, but I always felt something was missing. I don't like things that are incomplete. Perhaps it was fate. I should give a different gift. So I changed it to freedom, accompanied by the check he deserved. David suffered for all those years. After the divorce, I locked myself in the study, repeatedly listening to the music I wrote for David. I revised it over and over, still not satisfied, until one night, David appeared in my dream. At 15, he smiled at me in the rose garden. Aren't you afraid of the pain? Bleeding so much and you're fine? At 20, he smiled looking at me. Let me take care of you from now on, okay? At 25, he carefully presented the headphones in the dream. Your birthday gift. I fought hard for a long time to get it. When I woke up, my pillow was wet. I knew what the music was missing. 2 days of revision in the study. Then recording at the studio. This is the best piece of music I've ever written. Its name is David, dedicated solely to the man I will love forever. David is famous. I gave the copyright to David. That was meant to be his personal gift. We agreed to meet once a year. The rest of the time, I could only follow his social media. I watched every video he posted. Horseback riding, car racing, skiing. He was inherently introverted, but inside was an untamed, free spirit. A person who could shine. I withered him. Leaving me, he finally blossomed again. That's good. Since then, I look forward to David's birthday every year. Because only on that day can I see him. The one who is now blooming. David Becker's perspective. This year, for my birthday, many friends came, but Alice still arrived the earliest. She sat quietly in the corner. Always the most precious person. Mr. Bond once asked me if I wanted to remarry Alice. He said, since I left, Alice has remained single. I chuckled, shaking my head to refuse. I once truly loved Alice. She was the youthful dream of my life. But as the years passed, the love faded. Alice became someone I left in the past.